So let's start with our topic today. So we're talking about Google advertising. Is it really worth it for your business? How do you understand if it makes sense for your business? So what are those metrics? How are the things like timing and other factors that can determine if Google Ads is good fit for you, and how you can deliver a higher ROI, or return on investment for your business. Quick little intro of who we are. So we are Digital Stride. We're a digital marketing agency that mainly services the AEC members as well as home service companies. So this could be architects, engineers, construction companies. I think people like plumbers, roofers, those type of people. But we do work with a variety of other clients as well. We mainly focus on lead generation, brand awareness, and the digital presence, or what we refer to a lot of times as digital foundation. So website SEO, pay-per-click, those type of things to help drive a stronger online presence. So before we kick off and kind of tell the story, kind of lay out the framework here. So if you have two different contractors, they could be spending the same budget, that $3,000 a month. They could be getting 30 leads using the same campaign. One's making $12,000, the other one's losing money. And the difference is not always going to be Google. It's going to be a more of a business standpoint. So that's really going to be kind of focusing on here is that the business makes a big difference, as well as how you structure it and how you execute on the advertising you're doing. We see this a lot of times that some people are satisfied and some people are not. And it really comes down to a lot of systems, in addition to the paid advertising that you're doing. Of course, that matters if it's driving the right leads and such, but there is a lot of systemic and other operational issues that you need to address as well. So by the end of our presentation today, you're going to know which one you are, and hopefully how to better increase that profitability and ultimately grow your business. So why does this matter, especially for services? And this is true across the board. So it's not necessarily even just for services, but if you are in the service field or offerings, if you're having a high value product or service, and if you have an urgent need, that means you're a really strong fit for paid advertising on the Google platform. So if you're using Google search, high value, high ticket product, urgent need, that's even better. And it will be a strong fit. So those plumbers, roofers, cleaning services, especially commercial cleaning, even massage therapy, those type of businesses do really well with Google Ads. But even things like lawyers and such can do really well. Ideally, it's going to matter to some degree as to the scale of things, but it can certainly be a good fit for a variety of businesses. As well as, there's other larger contract type of businesses. So if you have like a $2 million commercial design contract, it's going to be a little bit weaker of a fit for Google Ads. There's just too much of a relationship, it's too long of a sales cycle for it to be like the perfect fit. But it's also kind of different in that sense. You don't need necessarily that direct ROI that you would see from maybe a commercial drain company, or you're doing drain cleaning. You're only paying $400. You have to get an ROI. Where a $2 million contract, you have a lot more wiggle room. That the ROI is not shown 100%. Maybe just added feature of that sales cycle, it certainly can help as well. Same with low order values. So if you're like that small e-commerce business that's only selling, like a $12, $15 product, Google Ads may not be the best fit for you. Google Ads can be a little bit more expensive, which we'll get into. So it can not always be the perfect situation. Same with like clothing and apparel. If it's not, high fashion, or if it is high fashion, it can be kind of tough at times, with Google Ads, just because it is a visual product. So that can also be another weaker fit, as well as things that require trust, so like finance companies, things like that. I mean, Google Ads can certainly work. And I'm not saying that doesn't work for these industries. I'm just saying that it's not as strong of a fit as maybe something like, emergency vet or plumbing and things like that. So covering the Google Ads landscape quickly, this is four areas that Google Ads really operates in. So they have search, which is what you'll see on like your typical search that you're looking for. Performance Max, which runs across all of Google. Display, which is images and banner ads that you'll see on other websites that aren't Google. And then you have demand generation, which are through YouTube. You can get that through your Discover feature. So if you're running a like an Android and you have that news discovery, that's where demand gen kind of falls into, as well as Gmail. And we'll go into each of these. So kicking off the workhorse of the four is search. So search advertising is the bread and butter for Google advertising. This is where you see like a kind of a listing like what you see on the screen now, where you can see that there is this top-rated local home cleaning, same-day booking, free quote. Those are your Google search ads. These are pretty high converting. It matches the customer's need at the moment they are looking for it. So if you're looking for home cleaning services near me, you show up, your chances of converting are much higher than maybe a traditional ad that is showing just to a target audience instead. And the nice thing with these, you can control the keywords, match types, and locations as well. So there's a lot of targeting capabilities. And as mentioned, these are a great fit for those home services, lawyers, vets, cleaning, any of those services that people readily search for that you have a lot of competition and are a little bit higher ticket item. The next one is Performance Max, Display, and Demand Gen. So PMax, which is what we refer to as Performance Max. This one can work. Certainly can work. It does need a little bit more of a budget. It needs good data, and it needs more monitoring. There's less transparency as to what it actually does. So it needs to have some kind of monitoring, some type of control throughout the whole process as well. But the nice thing is with these is that you can set them up. They are easier to set up, and if you have a large budget, they can definitely work, especially if you are selling e-commerce products. They're a good fit for that. They can link to your store and show your products live. Display is another one. So this is the one that you see those ads on like a different news website or some other type of outlet. These are usually cheap for impressions, so you do pay for impression, but they're usually very low intent, not the best. A lot of times this is wasted money. So if you're getting a display campaign from somebody, almost every time it's a wasted money of some sort, unless you're doing retargeting. And even then, the ROI is a little bit harder to justify than maybe search or even Performance Max. And then lastly, you have demand gen. So these are much more of the visual. So this is almost kind of like the social side for them. So it has a lot more visual aspects to it. It's good for brand awareness. It's similar to display, but this one is within the Google ecosystem. So you have more safety, you have more intent, and have a little bit better targeting than display. So if you are looking for that brand awareness, this is usually a better play, in my opinion, than display. So the strengths of Google Ads, we'll cover this, and then we'll get into some of the ways to optimize as well. Strengths of Google Ads is conversion focus. So it is built to drive high intent people versus maybe other platforms. It is meant for that. If they're searching up, like I said, you're like looking for a plumber near me. Obviously, you're in the market. So Google search is really good at capturing that. And the nice thing is you pay per click versus maybe other platforms. Like if you're doing traditional media like billboards or radio, you're paying for the possibility of it working instead of necessarily, not necessarily getting results. Google Ads usually does about 50% better than other platforms as far as driving results. Especially even considered like TikTok or Meta, it is just a much more conversion focused platform than maybe those other ones, and especially traditional media. It also offers precise targeting. So since it is keyword driven, you can really hone in on who's seeing your ad and why they're seeing it and when they're seeing it. It doesn't give you a lot of control as far as the devices as well, and service areas. So it definitely gives you the most targeting control of almost all the platforms out there. It just gives you a lot of opportunity to hone in on your customers, and really, if you understand them, you can get the ad in front of them in the right time at the right place. And it is PPC, not PPI. As I mentioned, you're paying per click. So you're not paying when someone views your ad. This does definitely decrease irrelevant costs. So this is one of the big issues with display advertising as a whole, is it does decrease, or it does drive up irrelevant costs because you are showing your ad maybe to people that aren't interested or as interested in your service. So you're paying per click, which is a big benefit here. And you also get fast feedback because it is more higher intent. You understand more quickly if the advertisement is going to work. So you will see very quickly on that are you getting conversions? Are you getting the ROI that you want to see? And normally you can see this within a month. You'll start to see something at least. We do highly suggest you give it at least 90 days of Google advertising if you are going to try it. But within a month, you should start to see something. It's not going to be what you'll see in a year from then, or 2 years especially, but it'll definitely be, you'll start to see some momentum. Whereas other platforms, it may take a month just for the algorithm to really figure things out. Some of the weaknesses for Google advertising, especially search, it is cost. So it is a competitive market, especially if you are in a competitive um, industry and you have competitive keywords. A lot of times, like lawyers and such, or even plumbers as a whole, those type of industries can very much see an increase cost. You could be paying up to $10 a click or even more. Some industries see a much higher cost per click. I will caveat that though, that doesn't mean it's necessarily not working or bad. It just means that you're paying more money for driving traffic. You just need to be more precise in making sure that that traffic is valuable. It does also require a little bit more of a population. So small markets may not just have the search volume for it to be really worth it, or it can only be a very small portion of your budget. Being that it is high intent, doesn't necessarily make it bad again. It just makes it that it has to be a very small portion, or you start wasting money, it becomes less of a good ROI for you. And it does require ongoing management. It is not a set it and forget it. That is definitely a recipe for failure for sure. If you do not update it at least weekly or more often, you will certainly see diminishing returns. You'll see the ads not working as well, and overall, you're going to end up wasting more and more money, especially when you're paying a few dollars a click. You need to be optimizing it and making sure that you can get as much money as possible. So when it makes sense, this is a kind of quick, um, understanding for you. It's not the end all be all, but this is at least a good starting point. So you have to have, if you have an average job value or order value of over $500, or lifetime value of that amount, it can be a good option. You have a service area that has a meaningful service volume. So that usually we kind of say about $50,000, or not $50,000, 50,000 people or more in your area is kind of a minimum that could be targeted through this. You have the ability to answer the phone and respond fast. So this is probably the most important aspect. So if you're running Google Ads and you're running, the demand generation and you're running a service, um, being able to answer the phone and respond quickly to leads that Google Ads generates for you, very key. So if you do not have that capability, that you can't generate or you cannot respond quickly enough, that will be a huge hindrance for your ROI and making this worth it for you. Lastly, you have to be able to budget at least for 90 days, we'd suggest, and tracking before you launch, or have tracking in place before you launch, sorry. So understanding how you can track your data, how you can track that information before you actually launch it, is going to be key. Um, One of the number one reasons that people do not succeed with pay-per-click is really because of the lack of missed calls, or most, or mainly missed calls. So the fact that they are missing calls, they're not calling people back in a timely manner, that is the main reason why we see a lack of success here. So how do you measure Google Ads success? This is a big factor. So the key metrics that we always suggest people looking at, one of the starting factors is impression share. So impression share is really just the percentage that you are eligible. So how often are you being seen? This is really only good for growing a brand. So if you are looking to increase your brand awareness, you want to ultimately look at impression share to some degree. If you have 20% share, impression share, that means you're only being shown 20% of the eligible times. So that means your competitors are showing 80%. Um, in some industries, that's all you can do, or maybe it's for your budget, that's all you can do, because it is something that is, expensive. Like if you're a lawyer, in a highly competitive market, I think 20% may even be good, because it is something that's going to be competitive across all of your competitors. Cost per click. This is when we start getting into more of like the meat of the actual, meat here of what's valuable. Cost per click is what you're paying per visit to your website. So when people click on your ad, that's how much you're paying. This is always a good starting point for optimizing your ads, because if you can get this down, or at least to a reasonable amount, you can then do the next step, which is going to be conversions. This is when people are taking valuable actions. So this is the next step. We go drive traffic to the website, worry about that cost per click, get that to be a reasonable amount. And then once they get to the website, we want them to be taking valuable actions. Normally, these are in the form of a lead submission. So something like they're filling out a request of some sort. They're placing a phone call, purchasing something online, or downloading something like a white paper or some type of informational piece. So that's going to be the next step. As we start off with the clicks, then we go to conversions. Then after that, we worry about cost per acquisition. So we want to be making sure that those costs per conversions is, getting to be a reasonable amount. So if you're spending money, how much money do you have to spend to get a lead, a book job, or purchase? Ultimately, how much does it cost per customer? This is going to vary widely between market, your brand awareness, your business type, industry. There's so many different factors that could influence this. And also over time, you should see that decrease, at least on average. There's going to be waves, ups and downs, but overall, you should see that decrease. And then lastly, a lot of the biggest metric for us is going to be ROAS. So if you're looking at Google Ads, this is going to be not the end all be all, but definitely probably one of the most important ones, is ROAS. This is return on ad spend. So you take how much you earned off the ads, divided by the money you spent on the ads, and how much do you make then per dollar spent. So if you have a ROAS of uh, $4, or sorry, 4 to 1. I mean, that means every dollar you spend, you're getting $4 in revenue back. To give you an example of this, from the earlier kind of talk about, depends on your business, and how well you answer phone calls, how well you close a sale. So a company that has a 33% close rate versus a company B that has a 10% close rate, if everything stays the same, that, they're spending 3,000, getting 30 leads. One's leading to 10 jobs, which is that 33% close rate, versus the 10%, which is 3 jobs, both selling $1,200 products. One's getting a 1.2, company B is getting 1.2 to 1 ROAS, whereas company A is getting 4 to 1. So that means that they're spending, 1,200 bucks. They're getting back 4,800 for a company A, whereas company B is only going to be getting back, sorry, they're spending $3,000, but getting $12,000 back, whereas company B is spending $3,000, getting $3,600 back. So that makes a big difference as to whether or not you're gauging that, and that's all going to be happening after the advertisement. So, you're running the ads, you're running the ad correctly. You're still getting the same amount of leads for the same amount of money. In this case, it's $100 per lead, but it's something like a roofer or something like that. They definitely could have $100 per lead because you're looking at high ticket items. A roof is a very competitive market, and so not cheap. So how you go with the next steps and go about closing the business is also a big factor in the successfulness of a Google Ads campaign. So one of the ways you can kind of define this conversion and track those, there's two different ways. So you have on-site conversions. So this tells you really what someone asked. So this could be filling out that lead form. It could be filling out some type of request for information. Could be even be a purchase if that's your business is a purchase of some sort. But generally, these are going to be those kind of click to call chats, form fills, anything they can do on your website. That is going to be the majority of these on-site conversions. These are also probably the most common because they will be kind of step one in the process. Unless you're selling something cheaper or something that, like I said, a purchase of some sort, then it may be just purchase, which still may be online because it's an e-commerce website. But for a lot of companies, offline conversions are the ideal. So these are going to be conversions that are being telling you what people paid. These are going to be things like jobs booked, quotes signed, revenue. Ultimately, these are going to be things that probably are coming from an outside source. So that's why they're referred to as offline. So this could be a CRM of some sort, so like HubSpot or Go High Level or some other software out there that you're tracking their leads from in your software that's showing that, oh, we booked this job, got paid. Now we want to take that information and put it back into Google. So we know what is actually working. What is the next steps that we need to take? Who do we need to be targeting instead of just anybody that's coming through and filling out a lead form? Because like I said, you'll get a lot more lead forms, a lot more those basic high level conversions that are on site versus offline conversions. So that cycle is very important. Another kind of key point to this about picking up the phone, I'm going to keep reinforcing that because that is a very big thing, especially for any type of services, is call tracking pretty much non-negotiable in my mind. If you're running advertising and not doing call tracking of some sort, it is very key. This could be done through like CallRail, in Vaca, call tracking metrics. There's all kinds of different options out there. So that what this does, it provides a dynamic phone number on your website. So when someone comes to your website and clicks on your phone number, it'll actually show a different phone number, possibly than what your main phone number is. It'll get routed then to your main number, and then it's tracked to see who is actually calling from what service, like where did they come from. We can then say that these calls specifically are coming from Google Ads. We can also say that these calls are coming from Facebook, whatever it may be. You can have different phone numbers for different sources, and all the information is dynamic on your website. So this is a very, very, very important process. And as I mentioned, with the conversion tracking, so having this iterative loop is a big deal. So having a way of providing feedback, whether or not it's the lead is good, lead is bad, um, that purchase was small, or the purchase happened at all. Those type of things can really be important, which is why those offline conversions are really needed. Online conversions are still good, and they're the first step. So like normally we kind of start off with like those cost per click. We optimize for better cost per click. Then you optimize for more conversions, better ROAS, or sorry, better cost per conversion. Then we would go to ROAS, and that's really when we start getting into this process of the lead feedback to allow improved bidding. Ultimately, will lead to more money because really, not all leads are equal. 150,000 or $150 service call, it does not equal a $25,000 roof. So it is a big, reason why we need to have that data, have that information, have that loop. So when you're running Google Ads, you want to be making sure that you are inputting these conversion values as dynamically as possible so that the algorithm can optimize your campaign to perform better. You can do this in a variety of ways. Some of the ways is just doing it by service line or lead type. So that's one way of going about it. So if you want to, you can, if you know your average close rate, you know your average sale, you can assign a value per lead even. So if you know that X leads come in, we have a 33% close rate. So for that $1,200 sale, so we know that every lead that comes in is a $400 value. That means that every three that come in, we sell 1,200 bucks. It's not going to be the most perfect um, way of going about it, but it will at least help you understand how to track your data and ultimately improve your ads. So the different ways you can measure success, as I mentioned, you have ROI. You can attribute the revenue to your ads. You can do it in a blended fashion. So this is going to be your total leads divided by revenue. So, seeing how your leads and revenue have trended after you're launched. So not necessarily focusing just on revenue, because that could be something that's lagging effect of some sort. It also could be not like the perfect attribute there for you, or you maybe don't have enough data. So you could do a blended view. The other one could be a strategic type of measurement. So that if you have a new offering, a new territory that you're trying to target, or you're trying to get that brand awareness, you're not going to have a huge focus on leads and revenue. Instead, you're going to be focusing on that awareness and making sure that your business is kind of growing in the minds of the consumers. So it may be a strategic measurement instead. The most important part is to pick your definition before you launch. So making sure that you understand coming into your advertising campaign, what you're trying to accomplish, making sure you do that prior to really making a decision to launch your campaign. So if you're coming in, you need to drive revenue, that needs to be your main focus point. You need to have direct ROI as your ways or your measurement for success. Or if it's brand awareness, strategic needs to be your measurement for success. You need to be looking at how can we get our product in front of new people. So one of the tracking issues we see, and how can we overcome them? So calls not being tracked. This is notorious. The big thing is usually going to be like using those dynamic call tracking numbers. So if you're not sure where a phone or a call is being led to or coming from, this dynamic call tracking is really going to be a key factor for you. Another one is form spam. This happens all the time, unfortunately. So the ways you can do that is by adding validation, filtering it in CRM, pretty much marking it in some way that it is bad, it is spam. And this is really where that iterative feedback is going to be important so that you can tell the algorithm that, the spam that you're being sent is not good, and that they need less of these leads and that we need more of the positive leads, the ones that are closing. So adding validation will help get rid of some of them. So things like the reCAPTCHA or some type of little quiz at the end, asking it like what is 2 + 8, and expecting it to give a 10. Those type of things can help, but ultimately filtering in your CRM or tracking of some sort will help you optimize your leads, but also minimize that spam filtering or spam need. Another one is multiple touch points. So you can use assisted conversions, not just like the last click attribution. So what we mean by multiple touch points here is that sometimes it takes more than just one interaction for a customer to convert. Actually, most of the time, it takes more than one interaction for a customer to convert. So having a conversion focus that allows you to see further than just the last click. So if we're seeing things that like Google Ads, saying that that's the last click, if you're doing last click attribution, I should say, the analytics will show that Google Ads may got X amount of leads, but really it led to someone saw the ad, clicked on it, went to the website, came back later, or they went to Facebook and saw the ad there, and then they clicked and converted. Google Ads is part of that journey. So that would help understand that it's not necessarily the last click. It wasn't the thing that converted it, but it was part of the decision process that the customer went through. So understanding, that kind of more complex conversion journey is really important. And honestly, Google and them, that's like their default at this point. So if you're switching it to last click, we highly suggest switching it towards the dynamic and the algorithm-based attribution instead. It definitely will perform better and have you have a clearer understanding of how your whole marketing funnel exists and operates. Phones answered but not logged is another one we see. This one is a internal one, not for 100%. And then the big one is training the front desk or training the people that are answering the calls. If you don't have somebody answering your calls, hiring an outside firm or hiring a receptionist of some sort to answer those calls is very important. And then also recording calls, understanding, what is being called in about, how can you optimize that better, or what, is there more training that needs to be done. This is kind of an important one. Once again, I'm going to keep emphasizing that essentially speed to lead for Google Ads is very important. So making sure that you are recording calls and using it as a training resource. All right. Let's talk about optimizing campaign structure. So one of the big kind of ways you can do this is separating campaigns by offerings. So if you're a massage therapy place, like you offer a spa, you could split this into those three kind of categories there. You could have like your deep tissue massage, which is like the middle one. You could have like the hot stones, and then you could have your I don't know, they're called little suction cup thingies. You could have little suction cups. You'd want campaigns, assuming you have a big enough volume, campaigns for each. This will help you stay organized, but also can let you optimize for each of those different services that you have. Same with your home service. If you're doing repairs, replacement, installs, each one of those should have their own campaign. It helps you stay organized, but also lets you optimize each campaign separately, so you can see better results over time. Along with that, having tight ad groups. So getting your ad groups, having them have relevant keywords that are all focused around that. So you'd have like that campaign with one topic essentially. So you'd have, say we're saying roofing or roof replacement. So for tight ad group, we would want all roof replacement type of keywords, not roof repair, not roof leaks. It's all going to be roof replacement. Then it lets you create a relevant ad. So the relevant ad then will have to be speaking specifically to roof replacement. What are their needs? What are their benefits? What is the customer? Why do they want to replace their roof? So everything in that ad should be speaking directly to the roof replacement people. This gives you then a better quality score on the Google advertising. So this then allows you to be seen more often. It also allows you to get a lower cost per click, which is always going to be the next best step. So, tighter ad groups, more relevant ads, better quality score gives you lower cost per click, which I mentioned before is kind of that first step. Lower cost per click is going to be what we want to optimize for, at least initially, to drive down cost. And then we will begin to optimize for conversions. Some other optimizations, avoid display. As I mentioned, I would not do this unless you're a large brand. Like if you're like Nike, sure, you can get away with it. If you're some big brand like that, display can definitely work. Most part, especially if you are a smaller business that's doing less than like 5 million, or even, depending on the business, it could be a little bit less than that. Display is just not going to be the perfect fit for you at that point. Updating keywords seasonally is another big one, especially if you are in a business that has a cyclical business cycle. So if you have that seasonality to you, you're going to see like wax and wanes or different services take a bigger priority at different times. Updating your keywords seasonally, it can be helpful as well. It'll help you kind of optimize for that keyword influx or deflux, versus just being stagnant. Sometimes what we do here too is create campaigns that are meant for that seasonal influx or have ad groups that are for that, and you can turn them on and off as you need. It's a good strategy to kind of save you time over the years. Another good option is bid by time of day, or time and day. So you can actually optimize your campaigns from Google and get Google search by the time of the day and the day of the week. So there's a lot of times you'll see that you're maybe not converting very well, or the cost just increased significantly. So seeing how you can do that, and how you can adjust the bidding amount or remove completely that bid entirely, so you're not bidding at all, maybe on Sundays at like 9 o'clock. By default, we normally turn off usually like the 2 a.m. to like 7 a.m. for every day of the week, just because normally we don't see a lot. Honestly, we don't usually don't spend a lot, but most of the time that it's a negative ROI for many businesses. So normally that's our kind of our starting point. And then over time, as you see data, I would always suggest like getting at least a few thousand impressions, or a couple, I'd say at least like 20 to 50 clicks, something that gives you some type of statistical value, that you can specifically say that like, hey, this Wednesday at 3 o'clock, not a good time. Let's skip that. Don't just do it based off of like one click or one interaction. You want to give it time and let it kind of make sure that you're making the right decision in a data backed way, and not just guessing. The other one would be trying emergency services. So if you do offer emergency service, that is a great option for Google Ads. So I would definitely suggest trying that. So if you're a vet, having your vet emergency services, or a plumber having like leak fixes, those type of ads do well because people, you're going to be shown at the very top of Google. If you're shown at the very top of Google, you're a little more likely to get clicked, especially if someone's in a kind of a hurry. Like if you need a vet, it's an emergency for my dog. I need to go somewhere. You're not going to sit there and spend 20 minutes researching the best one. You're going to go to one of the first ones and just go there. So those emergency services for Google Ad Search really do well, because it does put you right in front of the people that need to be seen. Conversion tracking, as you go on, is something you need to be constantly doing. So you need to be auditing your tracking quarterly. So you need to go through, make sure that everything's being converting right, that data is flowing properly, make sure that you're seeing, on your end, at least a very similar picture as to what Google is seeing as well. And this is very true as well for offline conversions. So if you have offline conversions that are being tracked, like you are the revenue, you have sales, you need to make sure that those conversions are being sent to Google. You're uploading that information, that data, so that way that we can optimize those ads accordingly. It can all be safely done. You don't need to necessarily give customer like information per se, but you can use like Google Click IDs and things like that that will help identify them and nod without saying their name or anything like that. Let the smart bidding learn from the real data. So this is very similar. So really, understanding that the smart bidding is like the algorithm bases and kind of reinforces itself over time. So by you giving it real data, giving information that the the customer is using, or the customer is buying your product, that will help the smart bidding learn to reinforce the right people. So always use real data. Don't use kind of like pulled fake data or anything like that. It won't help you any. And as always, better data, better automation gives you better return on ad spend over time. So the better that data is that you're either putting in, you're starting with, that's always going to help you increase your effectiveness on Google Ads. Same with automations. There's a tons of different automations that you can use on Google Ads. You can research them from everything from looking for anomalies to tracking spend to even adjusting based off of weather patterns. So you can adjust your bid for storms or heat, those type of things in your area that may influx your business. And all these type of automations that kind of make your life easier or make the targeting better will ultimately see a better return on ad spend over time. So in summary, is it worth it? If you are a business that sells high value products or services, you have search demand. So like I said, you kind of have that a market that's already existing that you can actually serve. You can respond quickly, and you have a way to track the information. It's a solid yes. You should definitely be looking into Google Ads if you aren't already, and making sure that you're taking the actions to continue to grow your business because that you are set up for success for Google Ads. If you are don't qualify for all of those, you can always try LSA. So LSA is local service ads. This is only for services, so you have to qualify under that umbrella, and it's only certain services. So a lot of like plumbers, realtors, um, roofing, repairs, anything like that. Lawyers can be in there as well. But local service ads is a great starting point if you're not maybe ready for this search advertising campaign. The other option would be focus on searches that have your highest value. So if you have the highest value products or services that you're offering, focus on those to do a lower budget, but then focus just on getting the highest value that you can. And then lastly, if you have a small market, you can't track things properly, your website's maybe not optimized for tracking, and you can't commit to 90 days of budget, it's probably not a good fit as of right now. Local service ads or some type of other advertising, maybe just word of mouth or networking may be a better fit for you. Um, that would be a good starting point until you can get to those kind of systems in place, or you have the budget to actually focus 90 days of spend before you call it a quits and say it's done. Well, thank you for very much for joining us. We do have some more lunch and learns coming up. So each month we'll be doing something. Next month will be an in-person lunch and learn on September 23rd, followed by monthly virtual lunch and learns starting in October until the end of the year. Since we have a lot of the holidays coming up after that point, and the most important holiday, which is Halloween. For those that don't know, Halloween, nice one, perfect one. If you haven't already, please subscribe and like our YouTube. So go to at My Digital Stride on YouTube. We post all kinds of lunch and learn videos, educational pieces that help you with your marketing. So from digital marketing, websites, SEO, pay-per-click, all those things we are here to help you with. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them for you. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks.